All right. Welcome back to another edition of the We're Getting Rowdy podcast. As you know, I'm Tyler McBee.
I'm Cooper Bell.
And yeah, we're here to kind of just bring what's been happening lately. And again, apologies for missing last week's episode. Little delayed, but just things came up. But we're here to recap a lot of news, like some good, some not so good in ball athletics. But I figured, why don't we start more with the football side of it, like seeing some new things. Uh, Recently, the number 2 overall prospect in the class of 2022, number 1 in-state player, Walter Nolan, releases a top 10 where Vols make the cut. But if you look at his top 10, it's a loaded top 10. LSU, Bama, Clemson, Michigan, Florida, Oregon, Ohio State, Tennessee, Auburn, and Southern Cal are right now his top 10 for this defensive lineman who would be a great addition to have. But just, you have to admit, though, going through a coaching change and still being able to make his top schools, that says something what Heupel and his staff have already done prioritizing these in-state kids.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I know just with Ty Simpson, Josh Heupel has been, been contacting recruits, especially in-state guys, just trying to, recruit them and just tell them like, hey, we're good here. It's gonna be okay. But I mean, it'd be awesome if we can get him for sure.
Yeah, and then speaking of Ty's set to make his decision this Friday. Few people are feeling like he's probably going to Clemson, but I still wouldn't count out the Vols, because if you listen to some of his interviews, he says he's never lost faith. Like, we never lost ground in his recruitment, even with the coaching change. And the fact is, one comment that makes me feel a little bit better is he says he doesn't want to go to a school and just be a guy. He wants a chance to be the guy at that point. Yep. So, I mean, you look at schools like Bama and Clemson, he could be considered just a guy at that point of what they've got already. But here, he has a chance to be the guy. And I know people are like, oh, he's going Clemson because he says he's shutting down his recruitment once it's done. I was like thinking, you see recruits do that all the time. Like, look at Salter. Salter committed to us and then shut his recruitment down. Harrison Bailey did the same thing. Brian Maurer, some of these guys just shut their recruitment down once they pick a school.
Yeah, I mean, once they close down their recruitment, it's like you said, it's never the end of it. But I mean, it's just something that you have to keep your eye on. But I mean, I personally don't think that he'll go to Clemson. Because they have that DJ Ungalele guy, and he seems to be a pretty good quarterback. And he's just going to be a sophomore next year.
Yeah, but technically could say a freshman with the free COVID year.
Yeah, so I mean, so I really don't think Ty Simpson will go to Clemson, just because there's some pretty stiff competition, and Ty's going to be the type of guy where he's going to want to start wherever he goes. So that's why I don't think he'll go to Clemson now. But I definitely see him landing somewhere here in the SEC.
I can agree to that. At this point, I'm feeling like it's almost looking like maybe between us and Bama at this point, just based on things I've heard. But who knows? Recruiting is fluid. It can change. But we'll know soon. But staying with the news of football, some pretty solid staff additions. Starting out, I know we got 2 former Auburn staff members, wide receivers coach Cody Burns, who, just throw a name out, Anthony Schwartz, who has done some damage in the SEC, was one of his big gets. And Tennessee also goes in and gets Rodney Gardner. And Rodney Gardner pretty much came in and said, hey, I'll be the D-line coach for any defensive coordinator. And we took him. And if you go look at all the big-time recruits Gardner's got, it's insane. Just looking back at some of when he was at Tennessee, Deion Grant, Kosi Coleman, Jamal Lewis are just some of the big names that he helped bring to Tennessee. So, you gotta love those two additions right there who have good SEC Power 5 recruiting capabilities.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I totally agree. But our receivers coach, I mean, I like the hire, but at the same time, I mean, if you look at Auburn, like, yeah, they've had like a few guys who come and break out, like Anthony Schwartz, for example. But and who knows, it may be because of just play calling and everything. But um, Auburn never has really had like a guy break out at receiver, but but that may be because the talent level's not there. I mean, if you look at our receiving room, I mean, we have talent all over the place. So I mean, I'm excited to see what he can do and to see who he can bring in and all that good stuff. But
Yeah. I also think it has a little bit to do with the system Auburn ran to where they
yeah,
weren't necessary. And you got to look, they kind of run it to where they were also spreading the ball out a lot too.
yeah,
So that's why you didn't really see one guy like
yeah,
getting a huge, like, multiple like 1,000-yard receiving seasons.
yeah. That's very true. But no, Rodney Gardner, the defensive line, I'm very excited about that. Just to see what he can do with our defensive line. 'Cause, I mean, it's like we've said in other episodes, we have a very young defensive line. So, hopefully they're easy to coach and excited to see who he can bring in and just all that good stuff. But I mean, both are very solid additions, not only just to the coaching staff, but also the recruiting staff as well.
Yeah, and then the last addition that we've seen for the coaching staff, Jerry Mack, the Rice offensive coordinator, is coming here to be a running backs coach who, I didn't really know a lot about. I learned he's a Memphis native. And
Yep.
if you notice, guys like Tevin Carter, Isaiah Horton, Dallin Hayden, they all seemed to get a little excited when they saw
Mhm.
a Memphis native coming to be a
Yeah.
coach here because they're all Memphis boys at that point, really. So that really, in my opinion, I was talking to my family about this, and I said, I think that hire shows that Heupel is also key about keeping guys in state because what better person to put in that area than a dude who's
Mhm.
from that area at
Yeah.
that point?
Exactly. And also, while we're keeping on the offensive side of the ball, I read something today where Alex Galesh is going to be the favorite to land the offensive coordinator position. Um, so I mean, he was at UCF with Josh Heupel. So I think it'll be a good pairing. And then little interesting tidbit about Alex Galesh. Do you know that he's a native of Moscow, Russia?
No, I actually did not. But yeah, no, I know he's set to coach our tight ends, and we had mentioned how just seeing what we saw from the production before he got to like when he was at Iowa State to what he was once he was like
Mm-hmm.
there leaving. It's like, oh wow, well, that's something all of our boys are excited about. And but yeah,
Mm-hmm.
no, I think and just from seeing what I'm seeing around this coaching staff, what I like is the players vouched for AJ Artis. And, it seems like he's staying here at that point.
Yeah.
And you got to love that because the players love him. He knows these players' bodies of how to transform them at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what you love. And I mean, personally, seeing the videos of some of these coaches just talking to these guys, it really looks like the guys are buying in to what
Yeah.
Heupel and them. Like, I just think of looking back when he says we're gonna learn to like we got to learn to play as a family and be as a family. When he had that like little friendly dodgeball game going, they
Mm-hmm.
all seem to be having fun and wanting to joke around like with the coach. Like, I don't think we saw as many videos like that with the previous coaching staff, but like with this one, we're actually seeing more, I feel like, accountability being held in like their off-season workouts with each other.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, they released a video. Um, can't remember what day it was, but literally the title was, um, accountability or something like that. I know it had accountability in the title, and it's just, I mean, it was showing a video of them doing workouts, and like if it wasn't perfect, then I mean, the captains or leaders would, just say stop, and then they would restart. So I mean, it's definitely nice to see. It's definitely nice to see these guys buying in, and I'm excited to see what happens. And I think, um, I think the guys already respect Coach Heupel. Um, I mean, he's come in and he's been their friend, and he's also been their coach at the same time. And it's like you said, I mean, you didn't really see, um, and it may just because that's what the previous coaching staff wanted, is just to not show that stuff. But the previous coaching staff, I mean, you never really saw the guys just having fun. I mean, it was always just business, and it's nice to see the guys actually having fun with it, and it looks like they're enjoying it a little bit more, and so that's always good if you can rejuvenate the team and get them actually excited to play the game again.
Yeah, and like what I've liked about Heupel's message, like one thing he said in that video, like with their dodgeball game, he says playing dodgeball is not going to help us win a game in the fourth quarter. What's going to help us is how when we come together as a family, play as a family,
Mm,
that's what's going to help you win. And when people just saw, oh, they're goofing around, he's teaching them other ways
yep.
through different things. So that's what you love to see. But, it's getting me buying in even more. And I'm
Yep.
just now interested to see who the defensive coordinator is going to be and who our DBs coach, because there's
Yep.
still, right now, I've heard the names of Wofford's head coach. Was a name
Mhm.
that came up. John Jancic, and now it's the Kansas City Chiefs linebackers coach, who was also a former Kentucky defensive coordinator, have been like three names I've heard for the
Yep.
defensive coordinator job.
And I've also heard Josh Conklin.
Yeah. So it's like, there's been a few names here and there. I think Conklin is the Wofford head coach, isn't it? If I'm not mistaken.
Uh, I'm not sure. Here, I'll look it up.
Yeah, because I was gonna say I think that is him, but then like one name I heard for the DB's coach was another UCF staffer, Willie Martinez. And when I heard that, we'll see if it plays out. I wouldn't be upset with that because people got to remember Willie Martinez, look what he did with Cam Sutton.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, look what he did with a lot of guys. And yeah, you were
Emmanuel
right. Josh
Mosley.
Conklin. Yeah. Josh Conklin is the head coach at Wofford. But I mean, um, Coach Martinez, he did. I mean, he has a couple success stories. Like you said, Cam Sutton, Emmanuel Mosley, Rashawn Golden. Whenever Coach Martinez was there, in my opinion, Todd Kelly was playing his best ball that
Yeah.
he played while he was at Tennessee, and Micah Abernathy. I mean, now granted he wasn't the best, but I mean you saw some improvement under Martinez.
We saw a
So
lot
I
of good
mean,
production because I think they said one or two seasons, his DBs had like in one season like 13 interceptions
yeah,
on the year. So that's
and
still something pretty insane right there,
and
just
I mean
amongst
we've.
the
Sorry, you go
position
ahead.
group, like right there. We haven't seen that in I don't know how long.
I mean, we probably. I don't even think we've had 13 interceptions like altogether since he left.
Yeah, no. Like maybe if that we had just recently hit it at that point.
Yeah,
But
but I would be great. I'd be fine with him coming back. I mean, if you can reunite him, John Jancic. I mean, we saw. I mean, that John Jancic defense that back in 2015. I mean, we saw that defense almost beat Alabama. I mean, if I
we saw
think
them
if we
almost
can
beat
get,
Oklahoma too.
yeah, I mean, it's like you and I have been saying, and like a lot of people are saying, like Josh Heupel, in my opinion, the defensive coordinator hire will either make or break.
Yeah.
If he can hire a good defensive coordinator, then I think that we have the right things in place to be able to become a good football team. And um, as Tennessee fans, we have to realize that because we're not the most patient people, but I mean, we have to realize that this is going to take time. Because with all the people that are transferring out, and then we don't know what kind of sanctions we're going to get, if we're going to have loss of scholarships and all that stuff. But we have to give the staff time, and so I think if we can give them enough time and enough resources, I think that I think we can end up being pretty good because seems like Josh Heupel is excited to be here. Um, it looks like he enjoys being around the guys. And I think he's making some of the right hires right now to be able to put us back to where we want to be. Um, but I'm buying in, but at the same time, it's a cautious optimism because I've gotten my hopes up in the past only to well we see how it's been turning out, but I'm excited to see what he'll bring, especially on the offensive side of the ball. So I'm just all that long speech just to say I'm just excited to see what's going to happen.
Yep. And then just the last little bit, just because I know we didn't get to touch on it, where we had missed signing day, we bring in grad transfer kicker from Southern Cal, which, with
Yep.
Smaglia announcing he's now going to Georgia Tech. That's good. We get that because what my thoughts are, that gives the preferred walk-on that's early enrolled true freshman, JT Carver, more time to, develop, get some leg strength, which, I mean, if you watch videos of him kicking, even just like practicing him by himself, kid's got some leg strength
Yeah,
to him.
he does.
And then also signing that Crawford, the JUCO offensive lineman at like 6'6", 315 pounds at that point, originally looked like an Ole Miss lane at that point.
Yeah.
We just come in, get him on signing day because he had known Heupel, like in this staff, a lot of the staffers from UCF already loved him, and then just said, I've never been to Knoxville, but I can't wait to get there. So, that was a good addition, I think, especially with Wanye officially being at Oklahoma now,
Yeah.
and then Jameer Johnson transferring to A&M. That gives us another guy we can use as an offensive tackle out there just to help depth-wise, because other than that, you can kick Cade out there, but I also like Cade at guard a bit. And then you have Darnell Wright, Kayron Calvert then you could really say Cade are like the only like three guys with game experience at tackle. So just getting this Crawford kid who's going to play a season in the spring. So when we're getting spring practice, he's playing a season. He can come in, transition in the fall. I think that's something really good for us right there because, he's not going to come in like needing to catch up with everybody.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited about it. It's like you said, you can never have too many offensive linemen, especially good offensive linemen. But with Wanye transferring and Jameer transferring, it's really going to be helpful having him come in and even though it's going to be his first season here at UT, he's still going to bring something invaluable, and that's playing experience. Now, granted, it is at the JUCO level, but I mean, compared to some of the guys that haven't really gotten that much playing time is playing time, and so I mean that's a big deal. Now, granted, SEC and it's much faster, but I think he'll be able to adjust hopefully. And welcome addition like always.
Yeah, he's definitely got the size for it. And I mean, even though I was watching some of his highlights, even though it was some practice stuff, kid plays aggressive.
Yes,
he does.
He does.
That's the thing. And that's what you want out of your O lineman, because most people they were worried about the kind of O lineman Heupel would get. Because if you look at UCF, some of the biggest guys were only 285, 290 at that point. But seeing what he says, we're going to work with the personnel we got. If that means, having big 300 plus pound O linemen, we're going to play that way, but we're going to be playing with them very fast. So these boys are going to be getting in some shape for sure. And I know we've talked about that, but good addition. And I'm just ready to see what can now form with this 2022 class, because we could say this is his first signing class, since now we don't have any commits in it. And he got here to where he's not inheriting trying to build relationships. I mean, yes, he's
Yeah,
trying to build them, but he has a lot more time than what it could have been, as of when, if people like where people wanted gone in November, him trying to come in at that point and do it.
yeah, um, yeah. I mean, it's it's just a never-ending cycle, man. Hearing you talk about building relationships, I mean, it's hard to believe, but I mean, if JG had stayed, we still would have had people from a Butch Jones roster.
Yeah.
And so,
Technically we do. Latrell Bumpus came back. Matt Butler came
yep,
back. Jay Blakely came back,
yeah.
so they were
So,
from Butch guys. But here's the thing, those guys came in and they really, I think, exceeded their expectations a
yeah,
lot. And because they've done what they've needed to do and have bought in, like Kayron Calvert, who was, you could say, an under the radar find for Butch. Theo Jackson is back. So we still got a few Butch guys, but I think some of the Butch guys that we have kept are ones that have a chance to really play well and have really started playing well for us.
yeah. I agree, but I mean, it's crazy. I mean, it's a lot to ask of those guys to. I mean, if I was recruiting, I was looking at schools, and if somebody told me, hey, you're gonna have three different head coaches in your year, in your 4 or 5 years at school, I don't think anybody would say, all right, sign me up. But I mean, it just speaks to the character of some of the guys that we have here, sticking with it and going through really thick and thin. And I mean, in my opinion, those are the types of guys that we need that are going to be here through thick and thin. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's pretty or if it's ugly. I mean, they're there, they're going to work, they're going to do what they can to help the team. And I mean, that's the kind of guys we need. We don't want the guys that are going to jump ship whenever things get hard, like a couple of people that have transferred. Um, but if you can't tell, I'm a little bit salty about people transferring because you sorry, I'm going off on a rant. I need to do this. But I mean, yeah, you in a way you commit to the coach, but at the same time you commit to the school. You're not playing with Coach Jeremy Pruitt on your chest. You're playing with Tennessee on your chest. So, and guys like Theo Jackson, they really understand what it means to play with Tennessee on their chest.
Yep.
I mean, it makes me mad whenever people come in and they think they're just hot stuff and that they're going to change the school around, but yet they're going to transfer the second it gets hard. To me, that just, you can't be the guy at any school if you're just gonna quit or lay down whenever it gets hard. But that's just my thing, and that's just to say, I respect the heck out of Theo and the other guys, sticking with it and being good leaders and just sticking with it through thick and thin, like I said. But didn't mean to go on that rant. Just needed to
Oh,
say that.
you're all good. And now I guess we can transition over to basketball. Last 2 weeks, you could say, have been a little up and down, like two tough losses for the Vols, as we had, Mississippi when we played Ole Miss. That was a
Yeah,
very hard one to watch. And then when this past, weekend on Saturday with that LSU game, another hard one, not the best. It's like, I just like, the thing I don't get is like, we have just played so inconsistent, and people are
um,
like, I've seen a few people upset that Barnes is like saying some of these guys just aren't playing like we know how they should. But if you listen, even some of those players are like, if they know they're not playing like they should, they come out and say, I'm just not playing like I should too.
yeah,
And
yeah,
it's going to be interesting to see what happens moving forward. But you could say for our men, two little bright spots was, yeah, Georgia ended up coming back, but we still ended up getting the win there. But going into Rupp, when we were down by like 12 at one point and then come back and beat Kentucky in Rupp, You always love to see when Kentucky goes down in basketball. And considering they're what, like 5-13 on the year or something like that,
There's something like that.
it's not looking like a tourney bid for them. And
No, no, it's not.
so
Hang on.
that's kind of something
I
I joke about. It's funny to see that, wow, we're looking like at one point, it's like, wow, we were looking like the stars of the SEC, and Kentucky was just like, what happened to you? But
yeah, I mean, Kentucky, I mean, they're just, I mean, dumpster fire is not the right word. 'Cause, I mean, they have Crybaby Calipari as their coach, but I mean, it's just, I mean, you hear reports coming out saying that, like, you know, this is the worst basketball team that they've had whenever it comes to character and just all that different stuff. And as of April 1st, 2019, John Calipari's buyout is 25 million. So if any Kentucky fan is watching this and you want Calipari fired, his buyout's 25 million.
and I don't think
And
any Tennessee fans will have sympathy. Everybody will probably rejoice
oh
because we know how he gets on the sideline and everybody gets annoyed with him. But,
yes,
but like I said, that was a good game. And then I'll tell you though, after watching all these games, you can probably know what player I'm thinking of. The one player that has seriously impressed me, Jaden Springer. Him and Keon both with 20 something points against Kentucky. And then the next game, Jaden comes out, drops 30, and Keon punishes a dude and puts him on a highlight reel at that point with that monster one-handed slam at that point. So our 5 stars, and even Josiah is starting to now really look like that 5-star status he was given coming out of high school. So that's what I've loved to see, because Barnes is all about development on his players.
yes,
You are
yes,
seeing that. You're not seeing, I'm just here so I can get to the NBA. I'm here so I can prepare myself for the NBA at that point.
yeah,
That's what I love. And I'm not saying it's going to happen, but let's say like it's going to be good that EJ is pretty much looking like he's coming back for a free year.
yeah.
Imagine, even if we don't, let's say, keep Fulke and Pons, but imagine if everybody else stays, you're still bringing in Kennedy Chandler, Jemai Meshack. That's a scary roster at that point if we can keep everybody.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, and say if Keon or Jaden was to stay, even though they're playing lights out, I mean, next year will be a very, very scary team. But while we're sticking with this year's team, I don't know what to think of them. One game it looks like they're a top 5 team, can make a run to the championship, and then one game they look like a middle of the pack SEC team. Like and there's no in between. Like they either dominate or they struggle. And when they struggle, they're either lucky to come out with a win or they get the loss that they deserve. So I mean, I don't know what to think of this basketball team right now. They're just too inconsistent. I mean, we're still gonna make it to March. We're still gonna make it to the big dance. But what we do in that, I mean, I really can't say. I mean, it's just too inconsistent.
Yeah. But last seed I saw, they have us projected now looking like at a 4 and 5 seed after that LSU loss right there, which, I mean, at one point people were talking of us of being a, top 2, like a number 2 or 3 at one point.
Mm-hmm.
But now we're starting to drop. But yeah, no, it's like, that's the thing. Like I know we've talked about it like off podcast before, like with a lot of our friends and like others. It's like, yeah, if you have one game where you play off and have a loss like that in the main season, it happens.
Yeah.
You can't let that happen in the
yeah.
tourney, because you're done at that
Yeah.
point. You could still have 15 more games after you at like in the main season with a loss. And it's like, okay, you got time to fix it. In tourney, you don't have all that time. So, but I trust Coach Barnes, Coach Kim English to get these guys working like on all cylinders, because, and I mean, if it even means like just benching a lot of our veterans and saying our younger guys are stepping up more than y'all, I say go for it. It's
Yeah,
like you got to do what's going well. And I mean, I'm really liking seeing Springer and Keon in that starting lineup. They have really shown they have earned their playing time.
that they've earned their playing time. I completely agree. And me and my dad, we've talked about this, but in my opinion, um, yeah, and I may get some hate for this, but I'm gonna say it. I think we need to bench Santi. I think he needs to come sixth man and put Josiah as in there as a starter. Because to me, Josiah plays better basketball than Santiago Vescovi does at this right now at this point of the season.
Especially
Because to me, it just
defensively. I
yes,
think
especially
Josiah plays a little bit
defensively,
better.
and Santi. I mean, he's either making a pass or he's turning the ball over. There's no in between. I mean, I get so frustrated with him because I mean he moves around and he tries to make all these flashy passes and just all that stuff, and he's making those careless turnovers that I mean is what really hurts us. I mean, yeah, I mean look at the Florida game for example. I mean, I know it doesn't fall all on one guy because I mean, if you lose that bad, that's just a whole team not playing good. But I mean, if you look at it, Santi had a majority of those turnovers. So I think we really need to get. I think we need to get Josiah the playing time he deserves, and let Santi take a back seat for a little bit, see if he can work on it, and if he comes back and is able to prove that he's going to be a good starter for us again, like he was last year, then so be it. But right now, I think we need to roll with Keon, Jaden, Josiah, Eve, and Folky as our main five right now. But that's just me. I just feel like Santi's not cutting it anymore, and I love Santi, but to me it seems like since he's gotten here, he's just degressed a little bit. He hasn't really progressed, in my opinion. He's just degressed every so often, and I mean, at first you couldn't really see it, but now it's really starting to come out, and I think he's hurting the team right now more than he's benefiting. So
Yeah, and I think the player you can compare him to the most, Lamonte Turner, because I mean,
yes,
Lamonte, like he had his games, and like Vescovi does too, where they play lights out as a starter,
mhm,
but then they can go on a 3-game like flat line streak of nothing really.
mhm,
But it always seemed like Lamonte came in clutch coming off the bench as the sixth man at that point.
yeah,
Maybe give it a shot and see if it works. We never know, but it'll be interesting to see what goes on. And also, you could transition now over to the Lady Vols. It was a lot harder for them to play because what was it like? One week they had every game canceled because of COVID. I know at one
mhm,
point Renaya was down for one of the
yeah,
games, but what I love, they're like, what did it feel like without Renaya there? All the girls took accountability. They said,
mhm,
we all just did not play together. Yeah, we didn't have Renaya, who, in my opinion, Renaya is like the most vocal leader on that team. Her and then Burrell. But it's like,
yeah,
we all just need to step it up. They were not using it as an excuse, not having her. They were all
mhm,
taking the blame. And that's Coach Kelly Harper instilling the Pat Summit way. You may not have your best player, but you take accountability for the actions. But I mean, this past week, the Lady Vols, yeah, because it was the week before they didn't have any games, but
yeah,
two, you could say tough losses, lost to Kentucky, who's ranked 20th, and then ended up yesterday dropping to the ranked sixth, number 10, like Texas A&M, so it's like, all right, those are, you could say, more quality. Like, yes, it's like you look at strength of schedule; those would be considered more quality losses because they're ranked opponents at that point. And I mean, we held on to A&M pretty well. We only lost by
yeah,
10, but I just can't wait to see the girls start clicking because they're another team that is like when they have their highs, they're high, but then they can have their lows too. And I mean, you could say injuries have plagued the Lady Vols a little bit more this year
Mm,
and COVID stuff. Hate to use that as an excuse, but I mean, at one game, what we had, they said like 3 or 4 girls out due to like injuries. Like two of them might have been only like minor rolled ankles, just couldn't really put pressure on for like a day or two. But still, when you don't have all that depth in basketball that you would in other sports, it's kind of hard. But Lady Vols still got a good rest of their schedule. They got Mississippi State, then they host ranked number 1 South Carolina, got Georgia, Missouri, and Auburn to close their season. So they still got several games, and then the women's tourney. And I
mm.
mean, just speaking of future games, the men got a huge game. You could say this Saturday. I mean, we host. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, we host South Carolina tomorrow.
Yeah.
And then Saturday, Kentucky comes into town. So, a lot of good chances for bounce back for both programs.
Yeah, for sure. You know, that South Carolina game for the women's is gonna be tough. Um, but I think if Renai can come back, I think they'll be okay. I'm not gonna come out and say they're gonna win because just South Carolina is a good team. They're well coached. Their players are they're just all around a great, good, sound basketball team. So I mean, if we can keep it competitive, that's nice. But I don't. I would like to see us win, but um, it's just. I mean, it's like the men's team. They're too inconsistent at this point right now to be able to tell what they're going to do game in and game out. And but I mean, time will tell. And then moving to the men's with our games, I don't really know much about South Carolina. I haven't heard anything. Haven't really looked at them. So I mean,
They've had a
I
lot of COVID issues, if I'm not
okay,
mistaken, for their whole like season. Because looking at it, yeah, they're listed as 12th in the SEC. Like overall, they're 5-9. So that just
okay,
shows you how little they've played this season.
yeah,
14
yeah,
games
wow,
they've played this season. And, you know, everybody else has hit you know, like we've missed a few games. We've had 19 games overall, but a lot of the higher like teams up in the top like 5 in the SEC have at least had 19 plus games. So, just seeing the difference in that could also just it almost makes you feel bad for some of these teams who can't get
mm,
out there because you feel for these kids more than anything.
yeah. I mean, I totally agree. Um, it's sad, especially for you know guys who this may be their last season, even though they're technically eligible to come back. Um, but I mean, for some guys that are good enough to make it to the NBA or an international league, I mean, it's tough for them. But it is what it is. It's just the world that we're living in now. But um, talking about the games, that makes me feel a little bit better about the game. Um, Now, like we said, been really inconsistent, but I expect us to get business taken care of on both of the games, especially Kentucky. As we know, the last time that they came to Thompson Bowling, they ended up beating us.
That was
So I
their
think
first
that'll.
time beating us in Thompson Bowling in the Rick Barnes era.
Yep, 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 yep. But so I think that's gonna add a little extra fire to this game. But Kentucky, they're just like we said, they're just not a good basketball team this year. And to me, that speaks to, Kentucky's one of those schools where, they rely solely on talent. The guys come in, they stay for a year, and then they leave.
Yep.
So I mean, they don't really have. I mean, they have chemistry, but it's nothing like the chemistry that you're gonna see at schools at like Tennessee that are actually there and they're developing the players, and the players have time to actually play with each other and get to know each other. So I mean, maybe this is just one of those years where the talent isn't enough, because I mean, if you look all throughout the SEC, I mean, we are a deep basketball conference this year. Um, like Florida, they're playing decent basketball. Alabama, they're playing great
Yeah,
basketball right now.
Alabama is shocking. Auburn's playing pretty solid basketball.
Yeah,
LSU's playing solid basketball in the SEC. So it just
I
shows
mean,
you it's not just Kentucky running the SEC
yep,
like they used to. And I was gonna say, just the whole time, just to kind of wrap things up, one little tidbit I had saw. I didn't realize this. I don't know how many people know. In the whole John Calipari era, Barnes is, they said, I think one of, if not the only coach to have 3 wins in Rupp Arena in the
yep,
Calipari era. And when I saw that, I was like, wait, what? I was like, that's just kind of insane to think of how much Kentucky usually wins at Rupp.
yeah,
And to see
and
Barnes have 3 wins there, it's insane. Where if you also look, 4 Vols have scored 27 points in games when we've been behind by double digits. Kev Punter,
yep,
we had Fulke has
yep.
scored.
Didn't Grant Williams? No, that was Jordan. No,
Jordan Bone,
you're talking about the 20 the the 4 players that have 27 points against Kentucky. Yeah, you're
yeah,
right.
and
Yeah,
it's
sorry.
like it was Kev Punter, Jordan Bone, Fulke, and Keon at that point,
Yep.
which is insane. And I also think something that's pretty cool. Keon Johnson is tied for second for the most points scored. I think it was against Kentucky in Rupp. And you can probably guess who's the number one.
Grant.
Chris Lofton.
Oh yes.
Chris Lofton
Yes,
has
yes, yes.
30. Keon and Fulke were tied at 27 at that point, really, like in Rupp doing it. And I was like, wow, that's kind of crazy. He's like, Keon scored like more than like Ernie or Bernie did,
Yeah.
Allen Houston, guys like those big names. It's just kind of crazy to see what some of these kids are doing nowadays. And Keon, it just makes me like this kid more as a basketball player.
Oh yeah. I mean, uh, Keon, he's just. I hope he stays, because I mean, to me, his energy kind of reminds me, and I think if if he stays and gets older and actually, um, you know, like I've been saying, actually stays at UT for a couple years, his energy kind of reminds his energy and just like his swag and just everything about him really reminds me of Admiral a little bit.
Yeah.
Just the way Admiral, just the way how he was vocal on the court, and just Grant was always the type of player, if he made a play, he wasn't going to make a big deal out of it. He wasn't going to show his emotion. He was that, at least on the court anyways, he was just that silent leader most of the time. Like, he was just going to keep his head down, go to work, and, just keep going at you. But Admiral, as we all know, he was the type of guy, if he made a play, he was going to let you know. And, right. And Admiral, he's either him or Chris Lofton. They're my favorite Tennessee basketball players of all time. But Keon really reminds me of that, especially after he stared down dudes from Georgia after he basically ended their life. But you know, I hope Keon stays and kind of goes into that role that Admiral had. And if Jaden can stay, who knows? Maybe we could have a Admiral and Grant part
Yeah,
two.
peanut butter and jelly 2.0 really
Yeah,
with them.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, because Jaden kind of reminds me of Grant a little bit. That silent dude that's just gonna go in, make plays, and keep his head down. And then, like I was saying about Keon, he's gonna let you know if he's if he's taking you to town. But I just love that duo, and I'm just excited to see what they're gonna bring.
Same here. And then, yeah, unfortunately, that looks like all the time we got, but we had
Yep.
to wrap up 2 weeks of stuff, to catch up. But yeah, we'll definitely be back with more stuff, and hopefully we'll know more like about the Well, actually, never mind. Hold up 1 second. Looks like according to somebody, Tennessee has found their defensive coordinator, Penn State's co-defensive coordinator, Tim Banks. So I guess it's looking like who it's going to be. But, you know, just since this is now just coming out as we're finishing this up, we'll get that more to you the next
Yep.
episode so we can both do a little bit of research on this guy.
Yep.
But until then, hopefully everybody enjoys a great Big Orange week. And as always, go Vols.
Go Vols.